catapulted him to power. They needed him to do the job. The Pope and the Führer, here he is with Pius, these two worked together for the destruction of Protestantism in the world. Yugoslavia had to go. The Orthodox Church, Romania, had to be trampled underfoot. When Adolf Hitler attacked the East, did he march towards Moscow? No, it was not his plan. He took everything else all the way around. Interesting. What is the first country that was taken in the Second World War? Just like that, and it was all over. Not a shot fired. Poland. Poland was taken. Not a shot fired. Now why was that? You see, Poland is a Catholic country. Everything was Catholic. Nobody was to be damaged in Poland. Take it, not a shot, secure it, safe. What's the next one that was taken? Just like that. France. France taken, secured, safe. The two Catholic enclaves, safe. Now we need the liberation of these Catholic enclaves. And then the military went in. And what did they do to the other nations? What did they do to Yugoslavia and Romania and all those enclaves all the way around there? What did they do to them? They flattened them. They flattened them, and then they went north. And Croatia, separated early on, declared independent, safe. Roman Catholic. All the Catholic nations were secured, and the others were flattened. Flattened. Now, this man will have much to account for one day. What did he do with the church? Well, firstly, he had to secure the vote. And he said, if anybody turns against him, there's big trouble. Here he is given an interesting handshake here by the Reichsbischof Ludwig Müller, who greets Adolf Hitler. There's the Roman Catholic man, and there's the Lutheran bishop. Now, why this bishop with this interesting ensign on his pockets? Well, the real bishop was put to death by Adolf Hitler, and this one was put in his place as head of Protestantism. This is a plant. That is a Jesuit man shaking the hands of Adolf Hitler over there. And then this mighty military machine and the mightiest symbols ever devised march into the world. Now, what are these symbols? There you find them in Theosophy. There it is. It's the symbol of Lucifer. Alice A. Bailey. There we go. Lucifer is the one. We also found it here in the lodge. There it is in Buddhism under the toes of the Buddha. So the swastika, symbol of Lucifer in all ancient cultures, all the way back to wherever you want to go in history. The swastika, the open hand, the symbol of Lucifer. And he uses the children, and he gets the masses on his side, and now they start this grinding war. This grinding war. Two enemies, the real enemies are where? You tell me, where are the real enemies? The real enemy supposedly was Britain fighting against Germany. No real invasion of Britain. Nothing. No real invasion. No, he's fighting and flattening whom? Yugoslavia and all those countries. Until all the resources are washed out. Finally, the Allies come in and they start throwing firebombs. Now, where do they throw them? By the way, that's against the Geneva Convention. That was against all laws of righteousness. They throw firebombs on the north of Germany, and they incinerate the north of Germany. Now, who lived in the north of Germany? Protestants. The south of Germany is Catholic. And what lived in East Germany? East Germany was the Protestant enclave. That was the one seat that was the powerhouse of Protestantism. So they have this mighty battle, this mighty war. Hitler declares that Russia had been defeated in 1942. Pope Pius consecrates the whole world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Cardinal Cayera wrote, "The apparition of Fatima opens a new era. It is the foreshadowing of what the Immaculate Heart of Mary is preparing for the whole world." Big hype. The enemy has been defined. It is atheism, it is Russia, it is orthodoxism, it must be eliminated. And the Pope sets him up as the man in white, the hero. Hitler's regime collapses. Colonel Beck of the Polish says, "The Vatican is the main cause of the tragedy of my country." By 1946, the Yugoslavian army takes back Croatia. But who runs the Yugoslavian army now? Russia. Archbishop Stepanek is supposedly arrested, imprisoned, supposedly for 16 years. Our Lady of Fatima is crowned with all these millions and millions of dollars of money and pearls and precious stones, and the promise will be fulfilled. Russia will be consecrated. Easy to say that if you know you already own Russia. 1947, the Cold War begins. The atomic race begins, 1948, 1950. Our Lady in Rome again receives pilgrim statements sent to Moscow. By 1950, they're calling for nuclear war with Russia. Now you have these two parties fighting. All of them were Masonic. Everybody in Britain, everybody on the United States side was Masonic, everybody in Germany was Masonic, and Adolf Hitler cannot be found. Oh, here's a tooth. It belonged to Adolf. The rest of him is burnt up. There is no trace of the man. What happened to the high Nazis? Where did they go? They went to South America, and many of them ruled later as whatever, Secretary Generals of the United Nations and all kinds of things. Those that could not be readily identified, they stayed. The others got cushy little things. And then when they were 99 and a half years old and on their last leg, diagnosed with cancer, they put them into a safe house and gave them television and all the luxuries of life and held a trial outside and said, "See, we found him guilty." Isn't that pathetic? They all got away with it. The United Nations is nothing other than the final rising of this confederate beast that will control the world, and no one else but this beast, this dragon of Apollo, or whatever you want to call her. The day will dawn when the vision of the United Nations will save the world. When the reality of the United Nations starts bearing fruit, then the breath of immortality will be a living reality on earth. Robert Miller, former UN Secretary General, he has been called the philosopher and prophet of hope of the United Nations. He is deeply spiritual. From his vantage point of the level of global statesperson, he's seen a strong connection between spirituality and the political cultural scene. So church and state must come together. After the war, what happened to East Germany? Who was it given to? It was given to Russia. By whom? By the President of the United States. Map drawn. There, Russia, you take it. What was introduced thereafter? By the way, when Russia was permitted to invade Germany, they only came as far as East Germany. And then the wall was put up, the so-called wall, that stopped any further incursion, but the East was totally given over to Russia. They sent in the most barbaric hordes of people that you can imagine. They even broke off the faucets and the toilets and took them with them because they thought if they opened the taps at home, the water would come out. But what did they do to the morale of the nation? They raped them, they pillaged them, they hung the women up by their Achilles' heels, they ripped open their stomachs, they took their babies out, they smashed them against the rocks. Who promised to do that? The Jesuits promised to do that. The biggest destruction of human morale happened in East Germany, while the West built a wall between the Catholic conclave and that conclave, and they enforced atheism by law. And they waited, they have time, 80 years, until Protestantism was gone. Then it becomes time to say, enter the good cop. Let's take it back. What did they do to the Orthodox Church? They took everything away. To make it look even, they took everything else away. But Roman Catholicism today owns everything, and 10,000 times more than it ever owned before. I've been to those countries. If you go to the Catholic ones, like Poland and parts of Hungary, they're booming. You go to the Protestant ones, they're annihilated. There's nothing left in them of infrastructure or human psyche. They are destroyed. Roman Catholicism murdered millions of people secretly, using monsters like Stalin. Now this man over here speaks to a giant audience. This is the Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Joseph Reed. And he gives a speech where he says that all religion is subject to the United Nations. Every single religious body in the world, only through the United Nations. I want you to watch his Masonic signals as he gives this speech. He says, well, he uses this one, the form of the globe. He uses this one. He uses both fingers like this. And everyone is carefully measured. He uses this one. And he used the sign of Lucifer, this one, 7 times in his speech. 7 times in his speech. These people, as I've shown you in last night's lecture already, are Luciferians. Now let me show you this little video of this man, and you watch him carefully. And then we watch the flash, because the media, only their media, takes the picture when he makes a Masonic sign. And he goes, snap. And then we've frozen those later to show you when they make the signs. Watch how it works. And we'll listen to his speech. It's very interesting. So let's have some sound. I think I'm going to switch this off or mute it. Here we go.
I make this appeal because the United Nations is also your organization, our world organization, your United Nations. Delegates, please remember, the United Nations is the only machinery we have for collective cooperation among all nations. It is the only worldwide institution for furthering development. The United Nations is the only universal mechanism for protecting human rights. The United Nations is the only shared framework for strengthening international law. Delegates, the United Nations is not one of the luxuries of international life. The work of the United Nations is of vital importance for the betterment of life on our planet. I make our world organization your United Delegates, please remember.
So you saw the signals that they give. Remember what they were? This one, this one. He gave this one 7 times. These people have an agenda. Every single church must be subject to them. If you're subject to them, you're subject to Rome, because they're subject to Rome. It is the way to oneness. That's an acronym for Lucifer. Leads to supreme oneness, another acronym for Lucifer. It is like a river flowing towards the source, the ultimate source. And these are the structures on earth whereby the world is controlled. These are the Jacobin clubs of today. The Council of Foreign Relations, the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, which, by the way, has divided the world up into 10 regions and has called the rulers of those 10 regions kings. Interesting. the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the Trilateral Commission. And together